With the president's Supreme Court pick, Neil Gorsuch, was grilled by the Senate Judiciary Committee yesterday, where he shut down Democrats who tried to nail down his position on issues like abortion and gun rights. He said it would be improper to comment on how he'd rule on any case that comes into his court. Now, his supporters hail him as an independent thinker, and so the question is, was this a good pick?
Oh, I think it was a good pick because he's qualified for it. But I think they're asking the wrong questions. I mean, he is a judicial ideologue, so he has this ideology, and they're not able to get to it with the questions that they're asking him. So he's being very evasive, like most picks are, Supreme Court picks. I mean, I would have asked him something like, you know, he considers himself this constitutionalist, this originalist. If that's the case, the right to privacy isn't enumerated in the Constitution. Do you believe in the right to privacy? That would have gotten to the issue of whether or not he would be I think supportive of overturning Roe v. Wade. Yeah, so they're not asking the right questions.
But he did say on Roe v. Wade that he believes in precedents. And he says that has been law for a long time, and it didn't sound like he would try to overturn it.
It didn't sound like that, but I still don't think they asked him the right questions. I mean, they haven't. He's very good at being evasive, and most of these Supreme Court nominees are very good.
Yeah, I kept waiting for him to get stuck because some of the questions that were coming in were, you know, trying to get him to pinpoint his position on this or that. And what I liked about it is that what I got from him is that his position and the way he feels about these things wasn't really important for this job in his perception. He said, I'm here to follow the law. The way I feel about something,
it's how he's going to interpret the law, though.
Right, that's true.
That's why his ideology is important.
But he wasn't alarming to me. He was balanced, he was measured, and I think coming from someone like Donald Trump, where you're always worried that he's going to sort of be doing this or that, or a little unhinged, frankly, in my opinion, this is a guy who's very balanced, measured, has a good comprehension of the law, and seems to know how to handle himself in these situations quite well, which
go ahead.
Well, I just like the part where, building off what everyone's saying here, when they asked him if he had to stand up to someone, and they said, are you talking about President Trump? He said, anyone is anyone, and that was very clear to me what he meant by that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that was, to me, bold.
And he was talking about the fact that, you know, President Trump has, I guess, criticized a lot of federal judges, and he finds it
do that. Let me get to it. Yeah, go ahead.
For a second, because I liked him. He's very handsome, isn't he?
He's very good looking.
I mean, he's too sexy for his role.
Well, we're on really important things.
But I did like a lot of what he said. I thought he was amiable. He almost looked like he was going to cry any minute. He was a little angry here and there, but you know, I don't know the guy. Yeah. But this one case that he ruled on, that Al Franken took him up on, was about a guy, a truck driver, who got stuck because his brakes got stuck. Now the brakes are stuck and he's freezing. He's in sub-zero temperatures. The guy calls ahead, come and get me. 3 hours later, no one comes to get him. He's freezing to death, the guy. And he basically abandons the truck and goes home. Now, this judge ruled, he gets fired. This judge, Gorsuch, ruled for the company that fired him rather than for him.
He generally rules in favor of companies.
Of corporations. But to me, that shows, like, yes, he's strict, blah, 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 and maybe he'll be good on Roe v. Wade because there's precedent. On the other hand, there's something lacking in the guy who doesn't rule for a man who could freeze to death. And Al Franken, Senator Franken, said, from Minnesota, the great Al Franken, he said, you know, I've dealt in absurdities in my previous career, and this is absurd.
Well, he's hiding behind the law because he's an ideologue.
But there's something about that shows you something that's not, the heart is missing.
If you have a legal problem with the way he ruled on that legally, he said that the statute cited by the Department of Labor was not relevant. That was his justification. But if you have a legal problem saying, you know what, legally, this guy who was in this truck had his life in jeopardy. He claims that he was potentially going to suffer from hypothermia soon. That's a legal argument. That I can respect and maybe take issue with him. But if your argument is that he doesn't have enough empathy, that I have a problem with, because I don't want the person sitting in that. No, well, I think I agree with you that there may have been an issue there legally. Maybe I didn't agree with that decision he made from a legal front. But I don't care whether my Supreme Court justice is empathetic to this cause or that. I want them to look at the law, and I want them to be objective about the law, because otherwise you allow too much subjectivity of what you may be empathetic to, I may not be empathetic to.
There's a problem with that. They have to have empathy, and here's why. If you have all guys, it is very hard to get them to understand why a woman's issue is important. Do you know what I mean? So you have to have some empathy. You have to be able to say, oh, okay, this will never be something I go through, but I understand this is something that's happening for you. And the other thing is, you know, the Supreme Court is there not for their personal beliefs, but to rule for us as a nation. And so I'm going to keep my fingers crossed that that's what he does. Because, you know, I was worried when Roberts went in. I was worried when other people have gone in, and I've been surprised by them coming in ways that I didn't think that they would. So I just, you know, there's nothing you can do to stop the fact that they're going to put him in.
Yeah.
Right.
You know,
well,
that's it. No, they're not going to. There's
an argument about that.
Well,
they have the votes.
If you can have as many arguments as you want,
Sonny's
as you've
argument.
seen. Yes, Sonny has many arguments about many things.
I do.
But the bottom line is, we have seen that they've put Betsy DeVos in, and she was not qualified. We've seen that they've. Okay, I don't think this is going to be an issue for them.
No.
Now, you may think that somebody out of the blue is going to say, well, you know, we think it's
my argument is with Schumer.
Senator Schumer has said that because Trump is under investigation, that you should not put him in because he may be in it.
And I think that's a very valid argument, though. It's a very valid argument.
It may be a very valid argument, but you are saying it to the people who are making the decisions.
But that's the thing. It's like, you know,
I'm sorry,
But if they rule that President Trump is an illegitimate president, then this guy is illegitimate too, according to that rule.
That's the argument, because if he is illegitimate, he's under FBI investigation. Why not hold off the vote? They held off the other vote that President. They held off that vote.
So what your argument is,
he's under investigation.
He's under investigation, but you do realize that they use that very argument to sink Hillary Clinton. We are faced with a House, the Senate, everybody that is not voting anything that we're talking about. And I don't think until one of those people actually stands up and follows through and says, hey, you know, I don't like this thing you're doing. We'll see. You know when we'll know? We'll know when we find out who votes for this ridiculous health bill.
Exactly, because you have a president who appointed, who nominated, you know, this fine jurist. However, he is under FBI criminal investigation. He made
it's a very fair point, but we've been making these fair points for the last.
Well,
how long has it been in?
Investigation last.
I feel like it's been 25 years.
18 months.
I think it's fair.
We'll be right back.